Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sal Guardo. With me, as always, is Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Hess, former football director of operations Dan Kopp, and former defensive lineman Kyle Searle. With us is a special guest, former quarterback who got the Penguins back into the postseason just last season. Mitch Davidson's joining the show as both a guest and a co-host to help us recap everything from the game last week to get us ready for the game next week. As always, we are on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast, and we are on YouTube Live, 7:30 every Wednesday. And anywhere podcasts are available, please give us a 5-star review. Today, in today's podcast, we're going to recap the disappointing loss to Missouri State as the Penguins go down 38-31, making the Youngstown State Penguins an unprecedented 4-1 for the first time in a long time. We'll get that.
1-4.
I'm sorry. 1-4.
Bad,
I'm reading things backwards. Thank you, Curdy. Then we will talk to Mitch Davidson and ask him a few cues and then recap week 5, get you ready for Indiana State, and get our picks in. But before we dive into all that, over to Searle real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Sal. The Youngstown Penguin Podcast, always going to send a big shout out and a thank you to the Leiden Oil Company, the Leiden family, Paul, Laura, Paul Jr., Jed Leiden over there, serving the community on and off the field and fueling the best for success.
Did I said 4-1?
You did say 4-1.
Unfortunately, yeah, really.
I said that'd be pretty sweet.
The heartstrings.
It'd be pretty great if we're 4-1. But
it's all good. Yeah, it would be.
Let's transition.
All right, I'll go ahead and take it. So it is with my absolute honor to introduce this young man onto our show tonight, fresh out of Salem, Ohio, Salem High School, all-state quarterback back in high school, and also all-district punter back in 2017. Quarterback for Youngstown State, started off as a walk-on. Guided the entire football program through a global pandemic, so got to give a lot of credit there. Earned himself a scholarship, earned the title of QB1. I think it was towards the end of his junior, maybe beginning of senior season. Really an incredible journey from small-town Salem outside of Youngstown. Full-ride starting quarterback, leading the team that eventually broke through that playoff wall, earning the Penguins its first playoff berth in like 8 years. I think it's its second playoff berth in like over 20 years. So in 2024, Mitch had one of the greatest seasons of all time as a quarterback. 3,088 yards, 69% completion percentage, throwing 24 touchdowns. Recently coming off a tryout after his time at YSU with a mini camp with the San Francisco 49ers. Purchasing his first home. Please welcome to the show future Hall of Famer, Mitch Davidson.
Hey, Kurt, I really appreciate it, man. That's crazy coming from you, man. It's unbelievable. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Yeah, wow. Listening to all that's crazy. It's taking me back to like, whew. But yeah, man, I mean, I just bought a house in Damascus. You know, after college, it's crazy. You grow up so freaking fast, man. But yeah, that tryout with the 49ers was like a dream come true. I know, Kurt, you actually helped me along the way through that path. I remember having a couple phone calls with you. But just that journey, man, it was incredible. It was like every kid's dream. You know, you get there. What really hit me was when I'm sitting in the team meeting, you know, with every guy that's invited to camp, and this guy, Kyle Shanahan, walks in, and it's like, you know, like it hits you hard, man. Like my heart drops, my chest starts pumping. I'm getting goosebumps. That like hour meeting was incredible. And just obviously being a part of that program, getting coached by, you know, some of those guys at the highest level was incredible. But, you know, going into it, yeah, I bought a house. Me and my fiance, we got engaged in June. We're getting married next July.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's crazy. Life it keeps on going after football. That's the wild thing.
No doubt, man. Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying all that stuff. And it sounded like I know you, as we had those conversations, just to touch on real quick before we get into the interview, like you trained with Cardale Jones, and I'm down in Columbus. He's kind of a local hero here for what he did for the Buckeyes back in, I think it was 2014. What's Cardale like? I know it was his birthday recently, but what was it like working with him?
It was incredible. I mean, from the, like, you know, like when you work with a new trainer, I mean, I know you guys know it as like athletes, like it's kind of awkward at first. You got to get to know each other. And it's like, there's like that transition period of like a week or 2 weeks to getting to know each other. Dude, it was like off the jump, me and him, we just clicked. That dude, like his personality, his energy every day, didn't matter when we were working out, 7 a.m. or sometimes 10 o'clock at night to 10:30. Like that man's energy all day long was just the same. He was the same person. And like we like created such a great relationship because like I was down in Columbus for that sole purpose. And I think he kind of knew, like big brother and me, kind of pull me in, help me through that. Cause like, dude, when you're going through that 12 weeks of training, like it's the same thing every day, repetitive. And like, you're there for one purpose. He did a really good job of like pulling me along, calling me, hey, what are you doing tonight? Nothing. I'm laying in bed. Okay, let's go get dinner. We'll hit the field after. Like just stuff like that. Went and watched him play basketball. We got really close over time. And like, it was like that big brother almost. You know, I looked up to him, but then again, like I joke with him all the time. Like, you realize like when I was in like a freshman in high school, like I wanted to be Cardale Jones, and he'd like mess around with me, and like you would never think like going out in public with him, he doesn't act like some big time, like he's never acted like that one time. He's just a regular dude on the street until you get out in public in Columbus and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't get an autograph. But it was really cool to get to know him, and like he's called me and he's like, hey man, got to get you down for a Ohio State game. I'll get you tickets, blah blah blah. So we've stayed in contact, and it's like it's one of those relationships you'll have for a long time.
Cool, man. That's great to hear. Yeah. Go ahead, Coach.
Okay, man. Yeah, Mitch, thanks for being here. Obviously, we're all excited to have you on, and we all enjoyed watching you play. And, you know, my question for you was, as Kurt mentioned, you know, Salem guy, local guy, walk onto the football team and, you know, obviously earned your way. But I was kind of curious, was there like a moment or maybe a game or somewhere along the way where it kind of started clicking for you? Because we've got a current quarterback who's only played 5 games and he's growing. And so was there something specific that you remember, like it just kind of clicked, things started moving slow for you? And if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, honestly, it was hard because like when I got my opportunity and, you know, I made it the best it could be, it was weird because like I never had like got thrown in scrap time at the end of a game to do a couple handoffs, you know what I mean? And like, that's what gets you comfortable as a quarterback headed into the next season. Like with Bo last year, how we kind of used 2 quarterbacks, he was able to, you know, transition to now, okay, you're the starter. I really never got that. It was like Joe Craycraft and Demetri Crenshaw and Mark Wade and all those guys, they were always ahead of me. It was like night and day. I'm working, but it was like, I'm always fourth. And then, you know, all of a sudden Mark moves to running back in that 2021 season, just because they wanted to use him as an athlete. And they kind of knew like he was transitioning away from quarterback. We had some better options. And then Demetri ends up being the starter. And Joe's the backup, and I'm kind of like third string at this point. And I remember Coach Troy, he's our offense coordinator. I went in his office. I'm like, what can I do differently? And he's like, honestly, nothing. You're doing everything right. Your opportunity is going to eventually come. And that's the hardest thing as a young kid to understand at any level. Like, you can't force an opportunity. That's like all with the good Lord above and timing. And that stuff will come. But if you're not patient and, you know, things don't work out, that's the problem with the game today. Everybody wants to transfer, leave, and do this and that. But he told me, just be patient. That was like the hardest thing as a young kid to like understand. But some injuries happen. All of a sudden, you know, I'm a 2 quarterback headed into the week. I'm like, you know, I've been preparing. I'm sitting in there at this point. I'm the 4th quarterback on the depth chart. I'm the only one sitting in our offensive coordinator staff meetings, going over film after practice. You know, going to class, coming right back in the film room and sitting my butt down on that seat and watching our 7-on-7 and all the cut-ups and all that stuff with them. And I think that was one of my biggest learning curves, is understanding how the coaches are talking and how they're trying to translate to us and that whole portion of the game. But getting into it, because I know I'm rambling on here, but it all leads into Demetri gets hurt. All of a sudden, Joe's the starter on the backup. I'm like, I know I got to be ready. Like, anything could happen. We're playing South Dakota State at home. We get into that second quarter. Boom, he takes a shot in the ribs from a corner route. And Coach Phillips looked at me and said, you're in. I'm like, okay. I go up to the sideline, Brett Favre, man. I threw like one fastball, and I was like, I'm ready. And they're like, hold on. I'm like, no, I'm ready. Like, I've been sitting here waiting almost 4 years for this moment. Like, I know I'm freaking ready, man. I get in there. And one thing I will give to Coach Troy, man, he always said, when I get a new quarterback in the game, no one's expecting a shot. He said, I'm going to get you a completion. I'm going to get you a shot. We came out. We ran a little hitch in the corner. We just mirrored it. Double hitch on the outside corners. Played the wrong side. So I'm like, oh, crap. I'm screwing around. I just see Bryce all around the corner. I throw it to him. He ends up scrambling, getting like 10 yards as a first down. I knew a shot was coming. He caught a little crack and go. And Kurt, you know, because you're a quarterback, if it's too high, you're good. If it's one high and you run that crack and go, there's a post safety. You should never throw that. Well, there's a post safety. I threw it anyways. Bryce Oliver. I mean, I tell Bryce to this day, I was like, you're the only reason I ever got a scholarship I ever played. He ran a crack and go, threw it. He went up and mossed the guy. And like, from that moment right there, like I had a lot of confidence because you have to as a walk-on. Like if you don't walk in there with like a little bit of chip on your shoulder, like you will never make it. And like that moment right there, like my confidence skyrocketed. I remember, I'll tell you guys, Coach Phillips wasn't very happy about this. I threw the touchdown. We're down, I think it was 37-3 at this point. We hadn't scored a touchdown in like 2 or 3 games. I threw this touchdown, I was standing on the 50-yard line, I took a bow and arrow, and I shot it into the stands. I mean, there's probably like 1,000 fans. I shot the stand. I remember I came to that sideline, he grabbed me. And I was just, and I'm a walk on this point. I'm just screaming, give me my money. Give me my money. I was going off. Oh my gosh. And like, I just remember our O-line coach grabbed me and threw me on the bench. He's like, nice throw, sit down. And but yeah, it was crazy. But that was the moment right there. Like, I felt like, okay, I kind of peaked. I'm here. I can keep going. I can get over the hill. But man, I'll remember that moment forever.
Wow. That's great. Obviously it speaks to your dedication, and as Coach Phillips told us when he was on the show, the stick-to-itiveness that you got to hang in there, and so that's great to hear. And I, kind of neat. We have another walk-on this show, Kyle, and the guy ended up being a monster. So so he knows exactly what you're talking about. So great answer, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mitch, I'll jump right into it, and let me just start off by saying, thankfully, you are not getting married during football season. That's like a big. Sure. I mean, I don't know what people are thinking. Like, you may not like football, but your friends do, right? So, yeah. Thankfully, 100%. you chose a good time to get married. And like just to touch on your walk-on experience, I was in like Coach Kopp said, a very similar situation, and we could probably get into it after the show a little bit. But I just think that the grind of the walk-on life is coming to an end, right? Like with the NIL and the transfer portal, like guys have less reason to stick around. They have less reason to buy into things. And, this is kind of going to lead into my question here is like, I think that grind teaches or coaches something in a player to ultimately take control of what they want to do with their team. And ultimately, you became a leader. What style of leadership do you think that you had? I mean, were you a vocal leader? Were you a leader by example? And let me just make sure I don't miss anything here. And what do you think that your teammates responded to the most from you? Obviously, they saw you grinding, and I think that extra time off the field with the coaches helped you. So what do you think you developed your leadership style into?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because a lot of people aren't going to ask that, and like you really don't get a chance to talk about it unless somebody asks about it. So going back to that walk-on grind, I mean, when you're a walk-on, you're obviously going to redshirt. I mean, your freshman year is downright one of the hardest years of your entire life through college. Like it is so hard. But I think it all started on scout team for me, and those Freaky Fridays where you're in there at 4:30 in the morning running stadiums and all that stuff. But like my leadership style, and I think a lot of people responded the best to, there was nothing when I was a walk-on. I was always trying to make sure I did everything right. Like I was the last to leave, the hardest in the weight room. I might not have been the strongest, the fastest, or anything, but like no matter what we did, like I was going to give it my all. Like I remember our mat drills, stuff like that. Again, I'm a quarterback. I'm not bench pressing 300 pounds and squatting 450. Like that's just never who I was. But when we would do mat drills, I mean, I'm a walk-on. I would call Demetri Crenshaw up because I knew he was a starter. We'd have tug of war fights. You put the thing on your back and you pull each other. I was beating him every single time. And I was calling him out. That was just the competitive nature in me. And I think my teammates saw that and but understood that man, this kid's trying to do everything in his power to be the best person here. a leader of this program. And it was like guys like on the defense that were like behind me, like, man, you got this, like stick it out. Like you should be a starter. Like you're going to earn it one day. Just stuff like that. I think my team responded to really well. And then like, even in the weight room and stuff like that, like if I would get on a guy for, not putting the dumbbells up with a Y up and they put them on, they put the Y upside down, I would go jump on that guy and be like, this is a shortcut. This is the easy way out. And the only reason people didn't respond so negatively is because I would never do that myself. If I'm going to jump on you, I'm going to make sure I'm doing exactly what I would never make that mistake. You know what I mean? And I think that's a leadership style that, not a lot of people have, because it's hard to do the right thing all the time. Not saying I did, but like I was and as a quarterback, you're very like attention to detail all the time. And I feel like guys responded to that.
Yeah, I mean, I love that answer. And I kind of got thrown out of practice one day for that, holding the guy accountable. I just remember, not going to mention any names, but, beginning of practice, I could tell, I think we were 8-1.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the 3 hardest games of the season left. And I'm like, we gotta win one to get in the playoffs. And depending on which of the 2 we win, we're going to win the conference, or we're at least going to tie the conference.
Yeah.
So I could tell we're not all dialed in. And Coach Wolf was big proponent of, we're going to run the play until we get it right.
Mm.
And so we ran this play 4 times. And defensively, you should not mess up your fit on the 4th time. So, like I got into one of our linebackers' faces, and he threw a punch at me, and I kind of threw him to the ground. And our defensive coordinator at the time told me, he like ran across the field. He was like, "You're out of line." And he threw me out of practice. And Coach Sims was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm out of practice." And I like just walked out of the field house. But yeah, I mean, holding guys accountable, but having that presence to do it is important as well. You can't just be a freshman trying to do things like that. And I think that grind is a walk on, and those guys knew that you were bought in fully, just totally had them bought into you as a leader for sure.
Who threw you out of practice, Earl?
Your boy, JT.
Gracie.
He threw you out of the country. You went to Australia.
I did. I studied in Australia my last semester. Would point on the getting married outside of football season. The coincidence of that is I had a friend over last night, and he did tell me he's getting married in November of next year, and I about punched him in the face when he said that.
Yeah,
I was like, dude,
crazy.
It's not about that Saturday lineup. That's going to be your anniversary for the rest of your life. Like you're not going to be allowed to watch football that weekend. But just completely selfish.
I talked to my fiance about it. I told her, I was like, listen, I'm thinking future here. Bryce Oliver in the NFL, Drew Ogletree, Jalil, Mike McAllister. I'm thinking about those guys right there. Their 4th of July week leads right into the 12th. I said, this is perfect. We couldn't ask for a better date.
Yeah, absolutely. But on a plus for the other guys, it's in Santa Barbara, which we know a couple Penguins out there. So I think I'll be able to go out there and see them, which would be that where Brown is, right?
Yeah, that area. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be able to see him. Anyway, Mitch, one game that sponsored by Dan Kopp, Ron Strollo, I was able to go to the North Dakota State game on that COVID year in February. And if I remember correctly, you started that game. Did you?
No, I don't know. I didn't. No.
I'm sorry.
No, we were supposed to – that COVID year, the last game of the year, I was supposed to start the very last game. It was against North Dakota at home. Is that the game you're talking about? Or no?
No, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because I ramble back. I think about 2021 season. We had 2 seasons. It's so
it's crazy. I guess this was the 2020 season technically, but I remember you playing.
Yeah.
And anyway, Crenshaw, I used to call him Kershaw all the time. Crenshaw was our starter, and you mentioned he was our guy for a couple of years there. In the era of the transfer portal, most people, they don't even try anymore. They just transfer, whether it's up, down, elsewhere, they go and play elsewhere. you didn't. Like you said in those other answers, you busted your butt. You became the starter and you got better remaining at Youngstown State. And first off, forever, you'll be a Penguin legend, not only for doing that and sticking it out and being the starter in this era that we didn't experience, but then you led us to the playoffs, which is something we were way past due for, which we'll always be grateful for. Why did you not transfer? Did it ever come across your head about transferring, or would you ever think about it? And what made you want to stick around at Youngstown State and make this program great again?
Yeah, no, transferring was like it was such a weird thing then. Like it was getting big. But like one thing that was ingrained in me at like such a young age, I come from a big family. I got 6 sisters and 2 brothers. There's 9 of us. So growing up, like we were all so close, like competitive. I mean, so competitive. We were out there playing basketball on gravel, trying to tackle each other, like just so competitive. And like that was ingrained in me at such a young age, like that competitiveness, like never run from a challenge, never run from, somebody trying to stand up to you, all that stuff. Like I felt like I carried that into college with me. But like when I was in college at my second year, I remember calling my mom and I was like, hey, like I don't think Youngstown's for me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I think I either want to transfer, people are saying like I could go Division II and like be really good, blah, blah, blah. And I remember she's like, I won't tell you exactly what she said, but she was pretty much like, are you kidding me? Like, do you need me to drive up there and kick your butt? Like, and I'm like, man, like this is coming from my mom. I'm like, Mom, you're right. Like, what am I thinking? Like, so that was like a huge part of my life, like where I kind of like was like, okay, I'm staying here and I'm going to go win a job. But like, just like my family, I truly felt like I had so many younger siblings looking up to me. My little brother, who is actually playing for YSU now, he's a freshman. He's working them walk-on days right now. But like, and then even my little sister who plays basketball at YSU now, like just wanting to be an example for them, like never showing them like, hey, there's always an easy way out. Like there's always something better on the other side of the fence. And I tell them this all the time. I said, the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. And, I felt like I stood at YSU and I watered where my feet were. And I mean, look at it now, the grass couldn't have ever been greener for me. And like another thing headed into that, like I just remember as a little kid, like 8, 10 years old, coming to YSU games, going back to like 2012, watching this guy, sitting like you wanted to be that as a quarterback. I'm 13 years old. Like this guy's on top of the world. Like, watching a guy like Hunter Wells too in 2016, take him to the national championship. Like when you're in high school, you want to be that guy. And I've always been a fan of Youngstown State and what they've done. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I wanted to, write my name in history in some way.
Absolutely. And not to never talk bad about anyone, but Crenshaw did transfer after you took that job. And I always loved him. I thought he was a great quarterback. When he did that, I wrote him off, but I definitely made some judgments about him after he did that. Cause I mean, it's always nice to have a good backup there, but
no, for sure.
Curdy.
Yeah, Mitch. So my question, pretty quarterback specific, and then I think after this, we're going to start getting into some game talk and stuff. But for the rest of your life as a YSU quarterback, I know for the last 12 years, everybody talks about, hey, this game and you did this thing and these stats and Hall of Fame, right? And that's always going to be there. But I felt like the things that have helped me the most in my life are the times where I was like lowest. And when I was down and I had to overcome something, right? Like being a walk-on or being a red shirt, you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get past this, but I did, right? I think my first year playing in 2010, we took the lead in like 5 out of 6 games in the fourth quarter with less than 3 minutes. And we ended up losing like all those games. And like, that's the stuff that I have in my life that I'll remember forever. So as a quarterback, like you go through those hardships and people don't always talk to you about that, but if you care to share some of those hardships or like where you felt like you were your lowest and you had to kind of overcome it, what were some of those times and how did you get past that?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great question. I mean, you really never want to talk about the lows, but at the end of the day, like sometimes the lows are who carve you and create you as a person in this world. It's wild. But one person I think that helped me through one of my toughest times through college was Coach Phillips. I remember, I was third string on the depth chart, and I felt like, sitting down with coaches and stuff like that. Sorry, my cat just walked in. you
Okay.
you don't know how to like get past something almost. And Coach Phillips could kind of like tell like something was up with me, and he kept pulling me in his office. And it took me a while to like realize like he really is just a genuine person. When you get in his office, he wants to ask you about your mom, your grandma, how your family's doing, what your little brother up to, how's life outside of here before he ever talks about football. And one thing with me was I was a roller coaster of emotions sometimes through college, and like that was like it kind of not what held me back, but like what made them question playing me sooner, as they would say. So I remember sitting in his office and I just broke down. I don't even know why. I just broke down, and I'm like, Coach, like mentally, like something's irritating me. Like I'm just like always mad. I'll flip a switch on something, and then like I couldn't figure it out. He's like, hey man, like this is hard. I'm glad you're coming to me with this, blah, blah, blah. And I actually sat down and like talked to a counselor. It was just talking about what's going on in my life, school, family, what's going on, money situation, all that stuff. And it honestly, it changed me as a person. It really did. It made me feel so much more level-headed, and just dealing with problems, dealing when a hard time happens. How do you deal with it? Do you attack it with your anger or with your emotions, or do you take a step back, take a deep breath? Okay, it's not that serious. Let's see what happens. And like carrying that into the football aspect as a quarterback is absolutely insane. You throw a pick. How do you come back the next play? You can't get that one back. And I think that helped shape me into the type of quarterback I was. I mean, I was an emotional leader for sure. Like if the highs were highs, man, we were rolling. But it definitely helped me, when the low points happen, when you turn the ball, you throw 2 picks in the game, it definitely helps you turn the tables a little bit. But that's a good question, Kurt. I like that.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. And I mean, we can tell in your play what kind of quarterback you are, because I mean, the last 2 seasons, last year and the year before, it was like people were calling you guys the cardiac kids, because if we could be down 10-14 and we would find a way to come back. And
Yeah.
And that speaks a lot to your leadership, but also the grit of the team and the culture that Coach Phillips built.
100%. I definitely last year, I think 2 years ago, one of the lowest points for us as a YSU football team is going 7-4, having that run we had at the end of that 2022 season, and then getting cut short of playoffs. And it's like you're looking around all these seniors, Mike McAllister and Jalil McLaughlin, like I'm never going to play another. And you think you were, you were so high watching the picks and all that stuff, and your name doesn't get called. And then obviously 2023 season, man, there's nothing better than seeing your name called.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Great story. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Well, Mitch, definitely stick around, help us break down this Missouri State game, and really get into the picks for the following weekend coming up. So let's transition here. As mentioned, Youngstown St. Penguins dropped to Missouri State 38-31 at Missouri State. I'm going to recap this. I'm going to recap it as quickly as possible. Try not to bore anyone on all these different scores. But first quarter, Bo Brungard opens it up with a 9-yard run on a 15-play drive. Just for some of you who don't count the numbers, that is a long drive. Missouri State quickly answers with Wright scoring a 27-yard run, 7-7 into the first quarter. Second quarter is a scoring affair, 57-yard pass by Missouri State. Penguins enter with Tyshawn Keene running in for 8 yards, 14-14. A 30-yard pass by Missouri State, jumping up a touchdown, and Missouri State scores a 19-yard field goal, making it 24-14 at the half. Third quarter, nothing but a field goal, 41 yards from the Penguins, making it 24-17, one-score game. This is when Missouri State tries to peel away in the fourth quarter. They have a 4-yard run, making it 31-17. Penguins answer with a touchdown from Ethan Wright, 3-yard run, making it 31-24. Penguins get the ball, score again. Bo Brungard, 44-yard run, making it very interesting. 31-31. Things are looking great. Then at the very end, with 8 seconds left, Lance Mason with Missouri State, 5-yard pass to win 38-31. Missouri State takes it. And before we break it down, just to remind everyone, and I said it last week, going to Missouri State is harder. It's a lot harder to do than said, I guess. remember that we had the home team has not won this series since 2016, 2017. It's been a long time. It's very tough to go to Missouri State and win. I'm not going to be part of breaking it down, but I will say I'm very proud of the team that came out and played today. Curdy, what are your thoughts on the offense, though? What do you think about the team?
Yeah, for me, we were talking about it a little bit before we got started here. Not much has changed offensively. We're still seeing a little bit of those inconsistencies across the board. We've always had a productive offense. I felt like at times during this game, our offensive line looked like the strength that we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. Bright spots being Bo, Ethan, and Tyshawn in the run game. Each of them is averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think Bo's up where somewhere near 10 yards a carry in this game. I think he had like 10 carries or 16 carries for 160 yards. But this is a Valley football game, and it's going to come down to just a couple of plays. We turn the ball over on an interception. We turn the ball over on a fumble. A lot of times these Valley games end up coming down to who executes and who plays better. There's so much parity in the league, and the league across the board is very, very close in terms of competition. You know, we kind of have that top tier right now of South Dakota State and North Dakota State, but everywhere else from team 3 to team 8, it's any given Sunday. And we lost our rhythm there offensively in the middle of the game, got down by 2 scores. I think it was, the fourth quarter with maybe 14 minutes left. It was still 31-17. So we're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. It's a team game. I can't blame it all on the defense. I can't blame it all on the offense, but these Valley football games come down to who executes better, and you have to execute for 60 minutes. And we still have some of those turnovers, and in a game that's tightly contested, it's going to come down to a couple plays and those turnovers. And for us, it did. And we lost that rhythm. So we kind of lost control of the game, both in that second and third quarter.
Sal, I'm going to just second what you said. Was proud of the team that was on the field. They fought for the entire game, all 4 quarters. Kurt said, it does come down to a couple plays. I feel like where the defense, just from the defensive point of view, like the difference in the game was the last few minutes of the second quarter where we gave up a touchdown and we were in a 2-minute drill. And we gave up a bad turnover, and that allowed them to go get an end of quarter field goal going into half, and shifted the game 10 points in the favor of Missouri State. I think it was 10 points at the time. And we only lost by 7. So, it's just little things like that in the game. What I am a little worried about is we have no problem controlling the time of possession, but teams seem to score on us fairly quickly. And, I don't know what the answer is to that. Like I said, I'm not here to speculate on what coaches and players are scheming and planning. That's not my job. Those guys do a good job and make a lot of money planning for that. I just think that that's just coming down to us learning how to play together as a team. We don't necessarily have young guys, but we have young guys on the field in terms of they don't have a ton of games under their belt. So, it's a little different when you have a junior out there with 3 games, or you have a junior out there that's been playing since the middle of his freshman year. Like that, you just, I could be a way better player today than I was my senior year, just based off of like knowing the game better and knowing the process of situations better on the field as they're happening. So I feel like I would like to see that keep getting tighter and tighter as the season goes on, and us getting better at not giving up big plays, big explosive plays. Because Tracy, our defensive coordinator, had all the statistics in the world. He said, you give up X amount of explosive plays, the likelihood that you're going to win is like down to 10-15%. Depending on how many explosive plays you give up. So we got to clean the explosive plays up. The team did come out and play fourth quarter, so I'm not going to bang them up on, their fight or their will wasn't there. So I think that heading into the Missouri Valley play, I think we'll get a little bit more competitive versus, definitely the Pitt game. But, I think the heartbreaker at Duquesne. I don't know what we were thinking. Valpo is very hard to judge what kind of team we're going to be because just the level of competition that they bring for those 4 quarters.
Nobody jumped off sides on 4th down, and no one roughed the kicker. So Cheryl's not as angry, and that was a good response, good breakdown. DK, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of what everyone's mentioned, but I mean, here's some of the things that are really good. If you look down, we rushed for 244 yards, threw for 180, 424 yards of offense. That's pretty good. I think we'll take that. Time of possession, as Kurt has mentioned all year, we had the ball for over 40 minutes. Think about that. We were 8 of 14 on 3rd down, which you guys remember, that's money down. 2 of 2 on 4th down. I mean, so we ran the ball, dominated time of possession. We, as Kyle mentioned, struggled a little bit in the first half on defense and came out and played a really good second half of defense. So we're still making those adjustments. Our kicking game, Andrew and Brendan were on point. We're making field goals, doing a good job punting the ball. As Coach Trussell told us, punt's the most important play in football, so we're doing that well. But we lost the turnover battle. We couldn't get off the field on some critical 3rd down stops towards the end of the game. It's frustrating a little bit because I think this team's really close. It's kind of hard to – you say that and you're like, oh, well, we're 1-4, but we're close. The guys played hard. There was no quit in that team. But I think I look at this right now, the point in the season, I think back of we've all been there. Mitch has told some great stories about battling through some adversity, and the 3 other guys, the hosts of this show, we all know those times. I think it's going to be really cool to see, or I don't want to say cool, but interesting to see how this team comes out because now behind the scenes, Sal, you remember those times when we were in the football office till midnight and you're struggling, maybe you're not winning, and now we're really going to find out what we're all about, right? Because these are those moments where everyone here knows, man, this is crazy. It's brutal. It's brutal to be 1-4. For the coaches, the players, the everybody involved, it's brutal. But yet it's kind of exciting to see what's going to happen. Because if we were standing here or talking here today, we were 1-4 and we went out to Missouri State and got rolled 38-3, we would be having a very different probably tone right here. But we weren't. We lost the game with 5 seconds to go and shot ourselves in the foot a little bit and still could have won. So I think there's that promise of where this team is. And my key last week was, what would our offensive line do? Well, we ran for 244 yards. I mean, that's pretty damn good. So we just we can't lose the turnover battle. That's what's really kind of killing us right now. And you're not going to win a lot of games losing the turnover battle. But I'm still optimistic about this team. I'm looking forward to it. But man, as you mentioned, Mitch, we've had Coach Phillips on the show. We love the guy. But this is these moments where that staff's got to kind of, like everyone says, circle the wagons and just keep coming out and playing hard, and we're going to be okay.
No doubt. I'm with you, Dan. I didn't know what team would come out of that locker room, and I was happy with the team that did. Like I said last show, what cures everything when the fingers are pointing is just win. You win a game, and suddenly it all goes away. But, Mitch, you know this coaching staff and these players much better than all of us. What are your thoughts? What happened to Missouri State? And if you want to chime in on the whole season thus far, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely do, and that's the thing. I'm so fresh out. It's weird watching games. You see some signals here and there and formations. You kind of know what's coming. Just a quick point out. I think it's good because Coach Phillips always preaches, "Let's start fast. Let's start fast. Let's start fast." And we have a couple times here and there. Obviously, Villanova week 1, Valpo. That's a different story, but I felt like this game we came out, we scored 7-0 to start the game on the road against Missouri State, a tough opponent. I think that was huge for us. And then obviously we're going back and forth there, in the first and second quarter. But I think what a big momentum shifter it was that pick going into halftime. Bo's got to take a little bit better care of the ball, especially in 2 minutes in that situation. But I think a 14-21 or a 21-21, going into halftime is really important. Now with a field goal at the end of half, with a 14-24 swing, that's a 10-point swing, 2 scores. That's tough. that's almost demoralizing. You know what I mean? Especially going into half, and you got to, reevaluate. But I think another thing that it almost frustrated me when I was playing, but with the way that we were able to score so fast throwing the football, and then the run game that complemented us, is time of possession isn't going to win you games. You could have the ball for 40 minutes, which we have, and we've lost football games. That's one of my biggest frustrations. I feel as if this year mostly, because we got to go score points. Who cares? If it takes us 15 plays, okay, that's awesome. But guess what? If it takes us 1, I don't care. Let's get our defense back on the field who's playing their butts off, and let's score freaking points, because that's what wins us games. But I do think O-line wise, I think we're phenomenal up front. I think a big shout out to Ethan Wright this year, coming in, filling a role that needed to be filled. I mean, with that tandem backfield with King or Wright, and then Bo running the football, I think that's huge. But what I'd like to see more is a little bit of just something on the edge. Get the ball out to Max Tomczak throwing a bubble. Something to get the ball out of our quarterback's hands quick. Just because I think that the teams are going to start realizing, as much as you start playing in Missouri Valley, that, hey, here's what's going to happen. But I think we got to start fast. And I headed in this week, I think that's going to be a huge part of getting a win.
Agreed. You could have said it better. I think we have a lot of athletes. Max, Keen, right? Find a way to put the ball in those athletes' hands and let them, win those one-on-one matchups.
Can we get Mitch on the sidelines with a mic, kind of like do the show, like a little bit of like, yeah, I mean, that was really good, Mitch. I mean, that I like that. We could like maybe do like a YouTube live from the sidelines with Mitch, and then we could
it's
just.
It's a little easier. I'm only a year out, so like I
was going to say he's got quite the advantage.
I still talk to him all the time. I just got on the phone with Bo yesterday, so it's like I still communicate with him all the time. So.
Well, we got Paul with Strollo, so we're gonna have Sal call him from Tampa and put some heat on. So,
all right. Well, that was Missouri State. We ready to put it behind us, boys?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's transition. Let's recap the week that was last week, week 5, and our picks. Congratulations to Curdy. He took it again. He now has 3 points overall for the season. Dan with 2, and so on with 1. Recapping last week, Houston Christian at Indiana State. We all win. Indiana State is who we're playing this weekend, by the way. Houston Christian with a big win, 27-24. And I really just wanted to know, because I thought that was humiliating, but Houston Christian's actually in the Southland Conference with Incarnate Word, Nichols. It's a pretty respectable conference. So, yeah, that loss is definitely not good, but Houston Christian, a little better than we may have given them credit for. Murray State at North Dakota. North Dakota destroys them 72-35. They win and cover. Southern Illinois Salukis at South Dakota. South Dakota wins and covers 42-13. North Dakota State, as always, wins and covers. As they were at Illinois State, they win 42-10. Youngstown State, Penguins at Missouri State, our largest spread, 18.5. The Penguins cover that, but fall short. Missouri State wins 38-31. Shout out to Wolf, who actually said 38-35 as a score prediction. Very close. Unfortunately, we did not win as he projected. Any games recap? We're ready to move on.
Move on.
Do it. This Saturday, 2 p.m., Indiana State is at Youngstown State on ESPN+. It will be sunny and 62. The fall weather is starting to hit there in Youngstown. Quick notes on the Indiana State, Youngstown State series. Youngstown State overall has led the series 24-8. And at Youngstown State, the Penguins have dominated 12 wins and only lost 3 times in Indiana State. The Penguins are on a 2-game win streak, thanks to Mitch. So this would be our 3rd win in a row if we could pull it off. How Indiana State has fared thus far, they are they lost 3. They're 1-3. They opened up at Purdue, got beat pretty bad, 49-0. Then Eastern Illinois, they lost 27-20. They got their first win against Kurt's Dayton Flyers, 24-13. And as I mentioned already, they lost by a field goal 27-24 to Houston Christian, making a 1-3 record. They are like us. They need a win. This is going to be their first conference game. We are already one game down in our conference game. Kurt, what do you think about Indiana State? Keys of the game, players to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Sal, you just said it there. They need a win, and we need a win. Thankfully for us right now, we're at home. I think that gives us the advantage. We traditionally have the advantage over Indiana State. A couple players of note. Number 35, senior Garrett Olendeek, linebacker, leading tackler. Number 4, Kendrick Milford, 6'4", big hoss up front, very, very disruptive on the defensive line. Number 17, Maddox Blackwell to look out for. And number 99, Jack Sherman, hometown kid from Terre Haute. So these guys, these senior class over at Indiana State, they got a lot of pride to play for right now. They know that, we've struggled a little bit early this season, whether it be against Valpo or Duquesne. We struggled a little bit here with Missouri State. So Indiana State and their coaching staff, their coaching offices this week, they're talking about how this can be a conference win for this team. And they're also talking about the senior class. That I don't think they have a lot of expectations. I don't think they have playoff expectations as they probably should over there, right? I mean, that's just how you want to coach your team, but I don't think traditionally they're there. But this is one that they can see that they can get. So Indiana State, guys, always comes down to us. Are we able to execute? Are we able to take care of the football? Are we able to play our game? Just like Duquesne, though, I really think that this is going to be kind of like Duquesne. If we give them anything, they're going to stay and they're going to start to believe a little bit more and a little bit more, right? We came out against Duquesne. We showed that we were the better football team. Every drive that we were watching from the booth, we looked like the better football team. We were bigger, we were faster, we were stronger. But this is still football, and you still have to play 60 minutes. We need to start early. We need to play fast, just like Mitch said. Don't give them any hope. Don't give them any belief. And if we start to turn the ball over, if we start to have penalties and give them a little bit of hope, we're going to probably be in for a tough conference game because they've played a couple one-score games this year. Go, play fast, take care of our business. I don't like to say step on their throats, but this is the one where we got to keep our foot on the gas, finish this game. Let's get the twos in by the fourth quarter, maybe. Let's get the twos in. Let's get a good win. Let's start to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, Kurt, this is a perfect spot for us to be in and bounce back and reevaluate and get ready for the next half of the season. This Indiana State team does not score a lot of points. They do not get a lot of yards per game. They're on average scoring 17 a game. If you take out their money game, they're still only scoring around 19 a game. So that's not a lot of points. They're averaging 130 yards on the ground and 113 through the air. The only thing I will say that I'm not necessarily worried about, but I'll be paying attention to is this quarterback is the second leading rusher on the team, Elijah Owens. And we saw that we had some issues with the Valparaiso quarterback and the quarterback from Pitt ran on us a little bit. So can we do a better job of keeping our pass lanes and keeping the quarterback in the pocket when he is meant to throw the ball downfield? Like I said, he doesn't throw a lot, but he's still completing 74% of his throws. With that being said, he only has a TD to interception ratio of 3-4. So he has 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So definitely an opportunity for our secondary to get some, confidence back, play a little harder, just turn your heads around, stay out of the receiver's body, and do not get pass interference calls because that's like what Kurt said. That's going to push them down the field 15 yards, give them another fresh set of downs, and then they'll start believing that they can do it again and get closer and closer to the end zone, and next thing you know, they're in the end zone. So I don't want to see that. I want to see 60 minutes of football, relatively penalty-free. Like if things happen in the game in terms of whatever the situation may be, but in terms of playing, no pre or post snap penalties. I just ultimately it's an opportunity for us to find ourselves in on defense and to get back into a rhythm and hopefully set an identity for the second half of the season.
For sure. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you guys, every week I talk about it. We just got to keep running the football. We got to be patient with running the football. Like Mitch even said earlier, we got two really good running backs. I'm still waiting for us to get in maybe that gun set with Tyshawn and Ethan on either side of Bo and start running the ball three different ways. But the coaches, they know what they're doing. I think the key is no turnovers. I mean, we're beating that dead horse, but the only game we didn't have any turnovers, we won. And we've lost some close games because we've lost the turnover battle. This was a preseason win for me. I still believe it is. It's going to be harder than we think. Their coach is a run-first kind of guy. He's a defensive specialist over there at Indiana State. They've got guys, Kurt, he mentioned those guys, and I'm kind of thinking about who do we got? I want to kind of focus on who's our guys that are going to step up. I'm kind of looking for a couple of guys on the defensive line. Mike Voitis has been playing pretty well, a local guy. Him and Hunter Allen, I think they've got 3 sacks each. But this is kind of a little question. I haven't seen Jalen Kreider lately. Is he – I don't know. I don't have any scoop if he's injured, but he didn't play last week. And he's a guy who had 3 sacks, and he's only played in, I think, 3 games. So I'm hoping those guys on the edge kind of step up if they do want to throw, like Kurt mentioned, and you guys pointed out about their guys, that we can go and wreak some havoc in the backfield and maybe impose some of our will on that defensive line. So that's a group I'm going to be watching. And hopefully, again, if we need to play a clean football game and do that for 60 minutes. And, I think we're going to be just fine.
Well, Mitch, as you know, I believe last year you went out to Indiana State. They were 0-9. I think it was 7-7 at halftime. We were tied with them. And they were very chippy. They had a pretty darn good defense that it was an ugly game. So you definitely, of all people, know there are no easy games in Missouri Valley Football Conference. What are your thoughts on Indiana State? I mean, home definitely helps.
Right, yeah. Being home for sure helps. I mean, that Indiana State bus ride, it takes a toll on you. Then you're playing a later afternoon, 3 o'clock game, waiting around this little hotel all day. Trust me, it's tough playing at Indiana State. I definitely think it's a huge, bonus that we get to play them at home this year. So my breakdown, if I know anything about Indiana State, it's going to be a fight in the trenches, man. They are tough up front, and I think our O-line needs to come ready to play, and we need to, grind the rock a lot. But again, running football, time, possession, all that stuff, I do believe one of our key takeaways is we need to spread the ball out. We need to get 10 different guys catching the football. We need to get our tight ends involved, our running backs involved, our receivers involved. Going back to the Indiana State game last year, I think I completed the pass to 11 different guys, and I completed 10 bubbles to Max Tomczak. He almost broke the receptions record in that game. But I think getting the ball on the edge, because it's such a fight in the trenches up there, getting the ball on the edge, whether it's bubble screens or wide receiver tunnel screens, whatever it is, throwing a hitch out there, we need to get the ball out. And then the other one, you kind of already mentioned it's the turnovers, man. I love Bo to death. I think he's a great quarterback, but we got to stop throwing interceptions. We're in week 5. We have 5 picks. I think he does really, really, really good things with his legs and with his arm, but taking care of the football is key. I mean, if you turn the ball over, you're not going to win games. And then my last little point with it is, I'm going back to 2022 here. What helped us win that game is a special teams explosive, man. Let's get a punt return, explosive. Let's get a kickoff return. Something on the special teams. There's 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. The special teams wins championships, and I think we need to see something out of our specialists this week.
Man, I'm resigning tonight. Here's the future of the show. This guy is on fire. Special teams win championships. You might.
Mitch, he's running for office actually in 4 years. So
I passed the age limit for that too. So yeah.
I'm not accepting your letter of resignation.
Mitch nailed it. Mitch nailed it, man. Tight ends. I love tight ends. Where's our tight ends? I'm shutting up.
Heck yeah.
Well, guys, definitely need to win. Kurt, I'm with you. I hope we definitely get up ahead and stay put the foot on the gas pedal and roll some numbers up here, because it does not get easier from here. The rest of the season, it's after this, we're at South Dakota State, South Dakota, North Dakota, Illinois State, Southern Illinois, UNI. So obviously, except South Dakota because they stink, this will probably be our easiest game left on the schedule. That's for sure. But let's get into the picks. We're ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Real quick, before we get into it, we have a lot of score predictions for Indiana State at Youngstown State. Real quick, Mike Metz picks the Penguins 24-17. Jason has the Penguins 28-14. Nico 38-24 Penguins. And Wolf 35-14. I believe all but Mets have a multiple score win for the Penguins. Love that. We will rattle this off. I will go, then Kurt, Dan, Mitch, and Searle say who's going to win and who's going to cover. And if you want to make your score prediction for the Penguin game, not required, but definitely an option. Indiana State at Youngstown State. Youngstown State is a -7.5 favorite. I'm with everyone except for Mike Metz. I have the Penguins winning and covering.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big win. I think offensively we're going to take care of the football. We're going to play really well, and I don't think we're going to give up a lot. I'm going to go 42-14. I think it's going to be a blowout win. Give me the twos in the fourth quarter, whole fourth quarter. Let's go.
Is that me? Sal, am I next?
Yep.
Yeah, I got YSU winning and covering. I'm not sure what the score is, but we're going to cover that spread easily.
Yep, I'm going with Youngstown State, man. I think it's going to be a tough battle in the first half, but I definitely think we're going to come out second half, moving the football around, scoring quick, 35-24 Gwens.
Yeah. That's Sal. I appreciate you saving the best for last, giving the people what they want with the controversial takes on the picks here. I think Penguins are going to win 38-13. Easily handle that spread as long as we, don't get any pass interference calls.
Yeah, so we definitely got to leave you last for your peanut gallery comments at each pick. South Dakota is at Murray State, 3 p.m. South Dakota, I don't know how, but they are favored -10.5. I'll take South Dakota, though, to win and cover.
Same. Go Yotes.
Yep, Yotes will win and cover.
Yep, same thing here.
You already know what I'm going to pick, Sal.
Just because you're on campus last week.
I love the coffee cup truck stop, by the way. Paul loves it too. They got Cinnabon in there.
Did you do any recon for us while you were out there, Kyle? Did you get any recon on the Yotes or anything? Or
it's kind of it's a drive-by campus. It's definitely a flyover state. You drive by it, and if you're not looking for it, you miss it.
Wow. Speaking of drive-by and road trips, Mitch, I can't believe we still bust Indiana State. Next time Stroll is on the show, we gotta take care of that.
Please don't remind me of that.
Were you going to land the plane in their parking lot?
The 2-hour bathroom breaks at the rest
Yeah,
stops.
crazy.
Sal, you trying to give me extra stress remembering those trips, man? Come on.
North Dakota is at North Dakota State for their in-state rivalry, 3 p.m. The Bison of North Dakota State are favored 14.5. I think the Bison are pretty good this year. I have the Bison to win and cover.
North Dakota actually leads the all-time series versus the Bison. But not so fast, my friend. Bison.
All right. I was going to say, is it the Lee Corso?
Yo, I like that little fact, but this ain't the Dakota marker game.
No.
The Bison are gonna.
Bison.
Yeah, they're fired up. They're gonna take care of little brother out there in Fargo or wherever the game's at.
Yeah, I think the Bison are going to win too, but I think it's going to be a lot closer game than 14 points. That's for sure.
Yeah, give me North Dakota with the points there. They might even win the game.
The defending champ, South Dakota State Jackrabbits, in an interesting one, are at the Unidome, Northern Iowa, 5 p.m. The Jackrabbits are only a -7.5 favorite. I really pondered on this one for a while, but it's too hard to go against the Jackrabbits. I have South Dakota State winning and covering.
I'm with you there, Sal.
I'm with you, Sal. I thought the same thing. This is where you and I pulls one of those, like
Tricky.
this Coach Farley pulls some rabbit out of his hat, but I can't bet against the Jackrabbits. So give me them.
Yeah, same here. The Unidome is one of the toughest places I've ever played in, but I think South Dakota State wins.
I did drive past the Unidome as well on this trip back home. But what are you guys pondering about? This UNI team absolutely stinks this year. All right, like the Jackrabbits are trying for number 3, and they are going to dismantle UNI by 3 scores. Put it down. Give me an alternate line. 3 scores.
Ooh,
3.
there we go. Grind them gears. Grind them gears.
He's not a big Kurt Warner guy.
One thing's for sure, Cyril's right. Northern Iowa, this team does stink, but we've seen some crazier things at the Unidome. That's what makes it very intriguing. Illinois State is at Southern Illinois Saluki, 7 p.m. This was almost a pick'em game, but Southern Illinois is just a 1.5 favorite. I think Southern Illinois is down this year, and Illinois State kind of is too. But I think Illinois State will win and cover.
People might be saying this about us from other programs, but
They're definitely saying it about us.
But this game doesn't interest me at all. I don't even want to pick Illinois.
You're not
State.
going to attend it?
They're both supposed to be good year in and year out, and then they just poop. So, like, I don't know. I'll go with the home team.
That's the quote. That might be the quote of the year right
this
there.
Game's not even interesting.
Yeah,
They
no,
probably
you're.
say that, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was more the poop that's I'm referring to as the quote
I get
of the
that
year.
from Cyril. Cyril gave me that one.
I love that, but this is I'm agreeing with you, Curdy. But this is where Southern Illinois wins these kind of games. So, so it's traveling there is like traveling to Unidome. That place is cursed. So give me Southern Illinois.
Yeah, my thing is with Ill State, man, they always travel well. They always come ready to play. They always start fast. So I'm going to take Ill State on this one.
I think Sal had Illinois State as the preseason favorite to be the dark horse in the conference.
How do you remember this stuff?
Because I love just to rub the freezing cold takes you have in your face. This line is.
Someone will do this to like Paul Feinbaugh or like Stephen A. Smith, but I love
That's
it.
true. That's a good one.
Cyril's the Stephen A. Smith of the show. That's great.
Yeah. What we had this conversation last time. The home team gets 4 points, right? 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
Regardless, they don't have the 3 or 4 points, which tells me Illinois State's the better team. So give me the Redbirds to beat Southern Ill.
Who'd you say, Dan?
Southern Ill.
Southern Hill. Okay.
I'm gonna go with a clean sweep.
We're running a little long, so I'll touch on a little bit later, but we were talking in the thread just for the chat to be realigned. Conference realignment is humming again, as we know what happened to the Pac-12. Now the Mountain West is inviting CUSA teams. Now CUSA, as we know, Missouri State is entering it next year, even though the athletic director has since left since that decision's been made. Is the CUSA looking for teams now? I think they are. I think they're going to send an invite too. So just keep your ears peeled. Is it going to be a Missouri Valley Football Conference team? Is it going to be a CAA team? Who is going to fit for that CUSA opening? We'll have to just wait and see. And I think something will happen before the off season. So I just wanted to mention to keep your eyes open, ears peeled. But let's get into Instagram questions. Curdy.
Yeah, just one Instagram question tonight from Mitch. Mitch, I know you spent a lot of time volunteering and working at the Rich Center for Autism. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, man, that experience was actually like once in a lifetime, man. I'm so happy to be a part of that and everything they did. They helped me out. They did the cleats in the game, which was absolutely amazing. I was so excited to do that. But, one big thing that I took from it, man, it was incredible. Throughout a tough week, you're watching film all week, you're game prepping and all that stuff. Just to take an hour or two out of your day, walk right across, right our neighbor right there. You can see it from our field. Walk over there, hang out with kids on their lunch, and talk about things that aren't football. You know what I mean? You're football all the time, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Go over there and talk about Scooby-Doo and SpongeBob and, eat lunch with the kids and run around on the playground, man. It honestly, as much as they thank me for helping them, they help me just as much. Lift that weight off your shoulders throughout the week of all the stresses in football, man. It was absolutely incredible. And, I'm really happy that they proceeded on with it, and they got a couple guys signed on now. Max Tomzak, I saw a picture today that he was out there with the kids, and I think that's a huge help, not only for them, but for Youngstown State in general, for them to get that light that they deserve. It's absolutely incredible.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that.
Cyril, chat, anything happening worth noting in the YouTube chat? I know I mentioned.
Man, I don't know how we follow the Rich Center up. Earlier, Jason Crum, I think he touched on it a little bit, just said, how hard is it to keep your head up when you're grinding? And, if your team is struggling like it is now, obviously you played a little bit, you were a part of teams that weren't playoff teams. So how do you keep your head up through those times and keep the guys grinding?
Yeah, no, for sure. I just talked to Bud. He calls me. We usually talk every Sunday. And I just told him last week doesn't matter. Get in, make those corrections. It was a tough loss on the road. But you got to come in this week. This week's the most important week. You got to just think about going 1-0 every week. You get a win this week. You're 1-1 in the Missouri Valley, man. They got a heck of a chance. But keeping your head up. That's all part of the game. The chin up, strategy. What's in front of you? The rearview mirror is there to learn from your mistakes and look behind you and say, hey, okay, this is what we need to fix. But it's always head up, eyes forward, and it's the next opponent, the next play, whatever it is, man. It's more important than what happened in the past.
Ultimate. We had the 24-hour rule. And then last thing, Sal, Mets, we'll forgive you. He got married in September. He got married in the heart of football season. He said in his defense, it was a YSU and Ohio State. We don't care about Ohio State here, Mets. It was a YSU and Ohio State bye week. So, but like you said, if that anniversary falls on a game day Saturday, right, Mets, I expect to see you in the box up there with your beautiful bride cheering on the Penguins.
And I expect her to be okay with it.
Yeah, I might even think that maybe she didn't want to get married during football season and he did. So what are you doing, Mets? I mean, come on. Come on.
DK, shout outs. Anyone worth shouting out?
Well, we're going to touch next week because we're low on time, but we've got a bunch of NFL guys. But just to show you our guy, we got people listening to us way out west in Montana. The Freilich family. They're out there on a great vacation in the mountains, man, and they're watching the show tonight. So they hit me up, so I got to give them some love, man. They're all the way out there in beautiful Montana, but listening to us goofballs. So gotta love that.
I love that. That's definitely on my bucket list. I've been wanting to get on Montana for a long time. Good to hear. Mitch, this has been incredible. Thank you for coming on. Like Dan said, you did a great job analyzing both Missouri State and Indiana State. Any last words for Penguin Nation before we shut things down?
Yeah, actually, I got a quick shout out. My buddy reached out to me. Shout out to Alvy and Zach in the equipment room. I feel like no one ever really talks about those guys behind the scene, but shout out to them. Appreciate them for everything they did for me in my process there, and obviously everything they do for Youngstown. But appreciate you guys having me on the show. It was a pleasure. When Kurt texted me, I was so excited. I was juiced up to get back into the swing of things for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been wanting to have you on for a couple of years now, and I think Trevor Parks wouldn't let us have you on. Is why? Yeah. I'm just kidding, but yeah, we it was a long time coming. We appreciate it. But anything else before I shut it down?
Thanks, Mitch.
Transition. Again, this has been the Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. We are on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast, and we are on YouTube live on Wednesday night, 7:30, recapping last week and talking about next week. If that changes, you need to follow our Instagram page to know if we are recording any other time. As always, we are on podcasting where podcasts are found. We appreciate a subscribe, a five-star review, and please share with anyone you may know. But again, this is a Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. I'm Sal Guerrero. That's Kurt Hess. That's Dan Kopp. That's Mitch Davidson. That's Kyle Searle. And as always, go Penguins.